Hi everybody. So here we are. We've come to pretty much the end of the course, at least the discussion part, and we have another week to, go back and forth about issues to do with the papers. So thanks to Christine and Daniel and Jason for moderating this, our last discussion week. And people are always busy at this time of year, so there's always a bit of a drop off in discussion contributions, but that's okay. Our moderators have made a very nice PowerPoint here, and it's very comprehensive, and I suggest you have a look at that. And it summarizes the key ideas from the articles relating to our online design principles. And this material, I think, can be very useful for you in your final papers too. The stuff just generally in this week. And I kind of like each of these articles because they each conceptualize in a different way kind of key aspects of pedagogical design considerations, and they're described at a very general level in a way, but they have applications across all sorts of different instructional online settings. You might adapt principles in certain ways in the light of particular learner populations you're dealing with in terms of age or subject area or specific learning needs, for example. But I think also dealing with interaction in any form is in teaching is part of the art of teaching, and I mean, it relates to cognitive things too, but it's very much a mixed kind of skill, I think, doing this. And interaction takes particular forms online, as we've been learning this term. So, for instance, instructional expectations and processes that are very clear and organized and predictable don't just help students navigate, although they do that. They lower people's anxieties because they know what's expected of them. So rubrics, suggestions for interaction and discussion and moderation, for example, are all part of that kind of setting out expectations. And then sharing, information about who we are and what our goals are for the learning experience has a similar effect, and we start to get a sense of each other as real people. And this over time starts to build trust. So if we think back to the community of inquiry in our online community week last week, into that theory, the model, not a theory, it's a model, we can see that the kind of analyses developed in this week's readings could easily map onto the various presences, for example, cognitive, teacher, and social presence. And those interactions between them in those intersecting Venn diagrams, for instance. And similarly, we can think about the suggestions in this week's readings related to collective cognitive responsibility, another one of the readings from last week too. And I think they're all, there's a different mix of elements in there, but they're all very much connected, and it's how much emphasis you put on students' sort of self-determination. I think that's one of the really key differences. You can have a constructivist classroom which is less like that, but I think the more you move down that direction, the more constructivist it gets. And I don't think you can have a fully constructivist classroom unless you really help students become more self-directed. And in a way, that's not teaching them something they don't know often, because they can be quite self-directed if they're somewhere else doing something, if you watch them at home doing something. But they've learned how to be a particular way in school, and school has reinforced particular ways of being for generations now. And so it's hard to change the game. You're changing the rules. So it takes a long time to sort of help people develop those different kinds of skills. So as you're writing your papers, keep in mind the fundamental ideas that permeate theories of constructivism. So those would be activity, situatedness, interaction, distributed learning. And I think that will help you pull the various conceptual elements together in your papers, which I look forward to reading. And I'm planning to hand marks in by the beginning of the January semester, so right at the beginning. So those who need marks to graduate, you should be fine, and you can apply to graduate and get on with all of that, and I'll make sure the marks get in on time. So I've communicated with most people either by email or through messaging in Pepper about the final paper, but do contact me, by those means or through entries in the help view if you encounter further questions as you're developing your final papers. And I just, as part of this sort of wrap up for the end of the course, I want to remind you to hand things in. Many of you have done your theories of learning and teaching. Don't forget learning and technology actually in this one, but don't forget to do your part 2, and you can do it either, like some people have put them together in one note, and that's fine. You can just put the new one at the top, just as long as you label them, or you can put it after, just label it parts 1 and 2 so I know, or you can do it as a reply to your first part, just but make sure it's attached because it's easier for me to find there. So the second one is that you must remember to, because people don't remember this, every year I have to remind a significant portion of the class to please do this. But for the learning journals, your responsibility is here to go in and look at your learning journal, decide what you're going to give it on your rubric here, which it can be, and you can do things like 2.5 or 3.5 or 3.8 or something. You don't have to use the full numbers. And you send me either a message in Pepper or an email, and you give me what level you've given yourself on the rubric and a bit of a justification why. So, and in reference to what it says in the rubric. So that's what you have to do for this, okay? And you have to send that to me because this is self-evaluated. And sometimes people forget this. It's not me that gives you marks for this, it's you. So this is your chance to get in there and give yourself a mark. And then explain to me why you think you deserve whatever it is. Okay, so don't forget that. Oh yes, my last reminder is about feedback, which, first of all, you can put your final assignments here. Sorry, that's the second other thing. You can just put them here. If you're not comfortable, you can make them private. Most people leave them public because people are very, I think generous in their reading of other people's work. I think people are very interested and in these ideas. But some people aren't comfortable, so you feel free to do what you will with that. And in here, course evaluations and start, stop, and continue. So you'll be notified by email about the formal course evaluation. Please fill it out because it's really helpful for me. It's how we get evaluated each year, right? But by our peers. It's not ignored. It's an extremely important part of how we're judged for what we do in an ongoing kind of way. And for me, the start, stop, and continue is really handy because I use that to make changes to the course. And I appreciate. I know this one here, the reduced readings. I know people always say that about this course, but it is a theoretical course, and I know it's heavy. And I have reduced the readings over the years, but you don't necessarily know that when you come to have it, and another iteration of it. But there some of those things are quite hard for me to do. But like this kind of idea, make some things more obvious. And it's true. I should have done that in a central view and not just in a separate view. So. The feedback and the continuing part is also very helpful. So please feel free to do that if you haven't already done so. And yes, so I think that's good. So just to conclude, thank you for coming with me on this journey through the course. It's always different every time I teach it. It's always different with a different group of people, and I learn a huge amount when I do these courses, and I hope you do too. I very much enjoyed the discussions and watching you kind of grow and learn through the course, and it's something I always appreciate. Actually, it's one of the parts of being a professor that I like a lot. So and don't forget that the material in the course might be useful to you at another time too. in your studies or your professional lives. And I will tell you that next time you read those papers, they will seem very different to you because you'll know more. And every time, it's like a really good book. Every time you reread it, you learn something else because you're in a different place in your own life. And so different things become apparent to you, and you think about them with different eyes. And so, they're there. They won't go away, and you can you could use them. And they're deep ideas, they're complex ideas, and they're a big part of how we understand education and pedagogy. And so, as educators, these are important things to have floating around in your head and come back to from time to time, I think. So, I wish you all the best for the future. And, if you're at OISE, do drop by and say hello. I always like meeting my online students, some of whom over the years I've met in places like the supermarket. I had a student rush across once in the vegetable aisle and say, "Claire," who I didn't know. I couldn't know who it was, and they were in one of my online courses. And it's funny because you see me more than I see you, in a sense. So you have with videos, but it's always nice to meet my students, and so feel free to do that. But email me first so that I know you're coming and make sure I'm there, because next year, this coming year, whatever it is, at the end of this academic year, so July 2015, I'm going on sabbatical for a year, which is wonderful. I can't wait. And I have all sorts of cool things I'm going to do, and lots of interesting research and writing, which I've been wanting to do for a while. But then I'll be back and teaching again, and I'm also available to be, if you ever want to ask me questions or email me about anything, do. I'm happy to respond. So so I wish you all the best for the rest of this term, and have a wonderful holiday. I look forward to reading your assignments. Please hand in all the other bits. Don't forget that you're responsible for doing that. And there we are. And I will talk to you at another time. But but as I say, do continue to contact me about the assignments. Okay, take care. Bye bye.